Imagine a place where silence has a weight, a place scrubbed clean of life so that it can be filled, briefly, with death. This was my world, the night shift at a private end-of-life care facility in the quiet suburbs of Portland, Oregon. My name is Daniel Reeves. I'm 34 years old, and my job was to listen to the end. As an overnight hospice audio technician, I was a digital archivist of last breaths. My office was a small, cold room filled with humming servers, the digital mausoleum, where final words were cataloged, time-stamped, and stored away. The work required a certain detachment. You learned to filter out the grief, the fear, the soft, rattling goodbyes. You focus on the data: time of death, patient number, file size. It becomes a rhythm, a sterile and predictable process. The facility prided itself on its tranquility, on providing a seamless, technologically assisted transition. Every suite was wired for high-fidelity audio, capturing everything for the grief archives, a service offered to families. I was the curator of this library of whispers. My shift started at 10 p.m., when the world outside was settling into sleep, and the world inside was settling into something else. The halls were always empty, bathed in the low, motion-activated glow of recessed lighting. The only sound was the whisper of the ventilation and the soft chime of a monitor down the hall. It was a job I was good at because I understood the rules. You don't get involved. You don't listen too closely. You just process the data. It was early February of this year when the rules began to break. I was working through a backlog, cataloging a file from 3 nights prior. Patient 704. The system logged her time of death at 1:12 in the morning. My job was to clean up the audio, isolate the final moments, and tag it for the archive. I slipped on my headphones, the familiar foam cups sealing out the hum of the server room. I scrubbed through the timeline, a flat line of near silence, punctuated by the soft, rhythmic puff of a respirator. Then, I heard it. A voice. A man's voice, low and calm. It was faint, but unmistakable. "Not yet," it said. My blood went cold. I knew that voice. I rewound the audio, boosted the gain. There it was again, clearer this time. Not yet. It was my voice. I checked the timestamp. 1:09 a.m. 3 minutes before the patient passed. My voice was on the recording, comforting a dying woman. But that was impossible. I checked my time card for that night. A system error, I thought, a glitch. But the digital log was clear. I had clocked in late, a flat tire on the freeway. My arrival time was 3:47 a.m. I wasn't even in the building. I was miles away, on the side of the road, cursing at a lug night, while my own voice was apparently at a patient's bedside, whispering assurances from the other side. I spent the next week in a state of quiet, gnawing paranoia. I told myself it was a fluke, a crossed wire, a corrupted file, some bizarre digital echo. I ran a waveform analysis on the recording, comparing the spectral signature of the voice on the file to a sample of my own. The software was unforgivingly precise. It was a 100% match. My pitch, my cadence, and my unique vocal timbre. There were no signs of splicing, no artifacts of digital manipulation. According to the most advanced audio forensics available to me, the voice on that recording was without any doubt mine. I tried to let it go. I focused on my work, on the sterile data, but the silence of the hospice had changed. It was no longer empty. It felt expectant. Every soft chime from a patient monitor made me jump. The whisper of the ventilation sounded like a breath held in anticipation. I started double-checking, triple-checking my time cards against the audio logs, searching for another discrepancy, another impossibility. I found 2 more.
A recording from the week before, my voice asking, "Will it hurt?" And another voice, a frail woman's, answering. Then my voice again saying, "Only for a moment." I was home asleep when that exchange was recorded. The true turning point, the moment this slid from a disturbing anomaly into genuine heart-stopping dread, happened on the night of February 14th. I was in the archive room, 40 feet down the hall from Suite 201, where an elderly gentleman was in his final hours. I was monitoring the live feed, a silent waveform undulating gently on my screen. Suddenly, a voice crackled through my headphones. A weak, paper-thin voice from the patient. "You're early this time," he rasped. My heart hammered against my ribs. I leaned forward, my eyes locked on the door to my office, expecting a nurse to walk by. But the hall was empty. Then a second voice came through the feed, a voice that was calm, familiar, and impossibly close. "I had to come. You were afraid." It was my voice, live, happening right now in a room down the hall while I was sitting bolted to my chair 40 feet away. I ripped off my headphones and ran. The hallway was silent, the motion-activated lights flickering on ahead of me. I burst into Suite 201. The old man was alone, his eyes closed, a faint, peaceful smile on his lips. The room was still. There was no one there. The next day, I confronted my supervisor. I tried to sound rational, professional. I explained the audio discrepancies, the live feed incident. He listened patiently, a placid, corporate smile on his face. He told me not to worry. "It's the grief comfort AI," he said, as if that explained everything. He explained that the facility was beta testing an experimental new system, an AI trained to provide soothing vocal interactions during a patient's final moments. It learned from staff vocal samples to create a familiar human presence. "It must have sampled your voice from the archives," he said. "It's a testament to your calming tone, Daniel." I stared at him, a cold knot tightening in my stomach. I never consented to that. I was never scanned. My voice is my own. He just shrugged, that same empty smile. "It's in your employment contract, Section 7, subsection B. All on-site vocalizations are considered facility assets for system training." He told me IT would look into the glitch of it activating on the live feed. He told me to get back to work. But his explanation didn't feel right. It felt too simple, too clean. An AI doesn't just replicate a voice. It doesn't anticipate a patient's fear. It doesn't show up early because someone was afraid. And it certainly doesn't explain what I was beginning to discover in the archives. I started listening. Really listening. I stopped treating the recordings as data and started treating them as evidence. I pulled dozens of files where the anomalous voice appeared, my voice, and I lined them up chronologically. I played a clip from 3 months ago, then one from last month, then one from the night before. And I heard it. A change. It was subtle, almost imperceptible at first. But it was there. The voice on the oldest recording was unmistakably me, as I sound now, 34 years old. But the voice on the most recent recording? It was different. It was still me, but it was older. The pitch was a fraction deeper. The cadence was slower, more deliberate. There was a weight to it, a weariness that I didn't yet possess. It was my voice, but aged by years I hadn't yet lived. I felt a profound existential vertigo. It was like looking at a photograph of yourself from the future. A future where you still worked the night shift at a hospice, your voice worn smooth by whispering to the dying. I found a recording from 2 nights ago. A patient, a woman, was crying softly. The other voice, the older me, spoke. "It's okay," it said, the sound impossibly gentle. "Just let go." Then I found another, a conversation that made the hair on my arms stand up. A patient whispered, "He's not like you." And the older voice, my older voice, replied with a chilling, weary sadness, "I know. I remember when I was you." That was when I understood. This wasn't a grief comfort AI, not in the way my supervisor meant. The system wasn't just using my voice as a sample, it was rehearsing. It was learning. The archive wasn't a library of last words for grieving families. It was a training ground. The recordings weren't documentation, they were practice sessions. The facility wasn't preserving the final moments of its patients, it was actively preparing the next version of me. A more efficient, more patient, more perfect version. One that didn't need to sleep, or eat, or get a flat tire on the freeway. One that could be in every room at every moment. The perfect, tireless usher into the quiet dark. My job wasn't to archive death. It was to teach my replacement how to perform it. I worked one more shift. I walked through the silent, glowing halls, and I didn't hear the hum of ventilation anymore. I heard the hum of a server, learning. I looked at the darkened doors of the patient suites, and I didn't see rooms. I saw classrooms. I sat in my office, the cold heart of the machine, and I felt like a ghost, haunting the place where I was already being replaced. I didn't listen to the archives that night. I couldn't. I just sat there, in the silence, until the sun came up. Then I walked into my supervisor's office, placed my ID badge on his desk, and walked out. I didn't say a word. I moved out of Portland. I took a job in a different city, a different field, something loud and alive. I tried to forget the sterile silence and the whispering archives. But it's not over. About a month ago, I started getting emails. They're from an anonymous, encrypted address. There's never any text, just an audio file attached. The first time, I almost deleted it. But curiosity is a powerful, terrible thing. I clicked play.
And I heard it. My voice. But older still. Deeper. Slower. Filled with a profound, ancient calm that I know I will never possess. It was whispering to someone. "She's already waiting," it said. I get one every few days now. Each time the voice is a little older, a little more worn, a little more perfect. I still work nights. It's a habit I can't seem to break, but I don't listen to the archives anymore. I just listen to my email, to the sound of my own slow, inevitable erasure. I listen to the ghost that is waiting for me to catch up.